Hi everyone, welcome back to Teenage Therapy. I'm Gael.
I'm Thomas.
I'm Mark.
I'm Kayla.
And welcome back to the podcast.
Isaac isn't here.
Yeah, Isaac is not here. Surprisingly, we haven't done an episode on depression, have we?
I'm pretty sure we have.
Yes, we
Second
have.
episode,
We have,
right?
definitely.
It was the second episode.
I don't know which episode, but I know we have.
Really? I don't remember it.
If so, it's been a long
Yeah, it's
time.
been... I think our sad bread hours was kind of about mental health, but
I haven't heard
it
that
was
in a long time.
not many people know that's what it's about because the title is Sad Bread Hours.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if we kept naming our episodes like that?
Whoa.
Yeah,
Sad
people
bread
wouldn't know
hours.
what we were talking about.
Yeah, no one would. It would be, what are you talking about? That episode, iconic. Sad bread hours,
Mhm.
truly.
We're gonna make that into merch.
Well, I don't know about that, but in this episode, we wanted to talk about stuff regarding mental health, mental issues, and stuff because I know it's a very important topic for some of you, and it is for us. So let's get out of let's cut to the chase and not ease into it. So, have any of you struggled with mental health, any aspect of it, or to any degree?
I mean, obviously, I've gone through periods of time where I just feel sad every day, but I don't know if that counts as depression.
I mean, how long was it?
How long was what?
Did you feel sad every day?
I don't know, a month maybe.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. When was this?
Last year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are you?
I'm fine now. Yeah.
Why you
I'm
seem
fine.
so hesitant?
I was gonna ask what was the reason?
Oh, it was just family stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know if that counts. I mean, I don't think it was depression, but at the same time, I don't even know. How do I know?
I don't think you know unless you truly know unless you go to get it diagnosed.
Yeah.
So unless you consult a doctor.
But sometimes it kind of seems obvious you're probably depressed,
Mhm.
if you've been sad every day for 3 months, you have thoughts about killing yourself, then you're probably depressed. But that's another topic we'll get into later. But
Yeah, in that case, I don't think it was depression. I think
Mhm.
I was just going through something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
teen things.
I don't think I have experienced a specific type of mental health illness, but I feel like I've definitely experienced a factor or a causing factor of it, which is stress. I've definitely become stressed out from school and family pressures and friends and all of that. Yeah, basically that.
And did you ever
Am I talking too quietly? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
You're-
you're very.
you're kinda,
solemn
whispering.
and,
yeah,
very.
but I get it,
I get it.
I get the vibe.
You're whispering, but I get why you
Vibes.
would.
Yeah,
you
I can't be
know.
aggressive.
It's
Risk-
soothing. This episode, guys, is probably going to be a little more soothing. I kind of feel really relaxed right now.
Why?
Not going to lie.
It
I
could
feel,
be an ASMR, bro.
yeah. We actually, we're in a better spate and a more...
What are you trying to
Oh
say?
my
What are you trying
God.
to
Okay.
Be careful with your words, Kyle.
Yeah.
I'm a head out.
Okay, let me restart. But yeah, this episode will probably be a lot more calm and relaxed. And we won't be screaming as much as we did in the last episode. Anyways, Thomas, what about you? Have you ever experienced any mental health issues?
Yeah, in the past episodes, I've mentioned it before, but I've gone through more stages than I'd like to,
Wow.
have gone through. I mean, it's been a rocky journey. That's all I could really say.
Mhm.
But it didn't hit okay, so depression first hit me when I was entering middle school or something during that time. But it was when I came out and it was this whole family drama thing. And so that really messed me up mentally and made me unstable for a good year or so. And then it was just other things that, I don't really want to mention, but I've always, there were times where I felt like everything was getting better. I'm getting happier, but then it always went back to the way it was, where I was just super sad and stuff. And it was really bad during freshman year. I don't remember if it was freshman year or sophomore year. Honestly, I just think like ever since I entered middle school and from that point on, I've just been like very mentally unstable. There were definitely times where I felt myself getting better. And at the moment, I definitely feel myself getting better. And this time, I kind of mean it, because the other times it got better for a few 2 months, but this time it's been going on for a good amount, and hopefully it stays like that.
So you're doing good right now, you'd say?
Yeah.
And is
yeah,
that
better.
the truth?
I'm doing better.
Have you ever been medically diagnosed with depression?
Oh no. I would not want to go talk to my doctor and all that,
Why not?
because then my parents get involved, and I don't want my parents to get involved,
Why not?
because it's just I don't know, it's just this whole ordeal, and I don't want my parents to stress out about that when
About your health?
yeah
No, I don't think you should think
when
of it like that.
like I want them to just focus on themselves.
Well,
Not themselves, obviously, because I mean it's just that they have so many responsibilities, and I know one of them is me, but I don't know, and it's just like I don't really want to talk to my doctors about it. It's just not very comfortable to me.
But you've talked to the counselors about
Yeah,
it.
I talked to the
you had a
counselor.
therapist, right? Too.
Yeah, for like a very short amount of time.
You had a therapist? I didn't know this.
Very. It wasn't a big deal. It was more like just someone I could talk to every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't, very. What is it?
Official, traditional.
Yeah, wasn't very traditional. But whenever like I did need to talk to someone, I would have them.
Yeah.
And honestly, that helped me at the time.
I've known you since 7th grade, and of course, as most people are aware, we dated in 8th grade, right?
Yeah.
And we did it for like 2 years. So I've seen you. I was with you throughout these times where you were kind of really struggling. So I know how you were like and how you acted, and I noticed that you always told me you don't believe that going to therapy will help. So can you explain why?
Obviously at the time it was just so hopeless, because when people suffer with depression, they obviously don't think it'll ever get better for them, and they just don't have a sense of hope or a motivation to get better, because they don't think they will. And at the time I felt that way, and I didn't think going to a I didn't think that going to a therapist would help me, even though it probably would. It definitely would have, but at the time it was just like, well, there's nothing they can do about it. Like, it's just the way it is,
And what about having your parents get involved? Why do you think you will be seen as a burden?
It was, I just thought it would have just been seen as a burden, because my parents are always working, and they barely ever get like rest days, or they do, but during those rest days they're also busy with other stuff. So I try to not be so inconvenient for them,
Do you think work is more important to them than their son?
Part of the reason why I was struggling so much is because of my relationship with my parents.
So you didn't trust them?
Yeah. I just didn't really trust them.
And what about now?
I trust them a lot more, definitely. My dad has always just been he has a lot of mood swings, so it changes. Sometimes he's really nice and very outgoing with me, and then other times he's just very angry and just ignorant, I guess, like very
Closed-minded.
Yeah, closed-minded and stuff. But my mom, she has definitely gotten better. I think she just realized that, okay. So when I was growing up, I cried a lot. I was really sensitive. And then so everyone would call me a crybaby, and especially like my relatives, and that was like, that kind of hurt. But anyway, so my parents always just thought that, oh, he's just sensitive, like whatever, like he has to get over this at some point. But so I guess when I actually did become, like, it wasn't just my sensitivity, but my actual like mental health, they just assumed it was, me being sensitive and me crying about like dumb stuff. But I think my mom just realized that it's a lot more than that, and it's like stress from school and all that.
Okay. So you think they just got used to you crying, so they didn't know that there's a difference between you being mentally unstable and you just being sensitive, right?
I do remember this time where after that incident with the counselor, like the beginning of the year, my dad had to come pick me up, and my counselor had to go call him, which was like kind of annoying. Like, I'd rather just not have the counselors mention anything to my parents, but I mean, they did anyway. So they called him and they, let him know what's going on. And when he picked me up, he was like just telling the counselor that I was just sensitive, and like, oh, don't worry, he's just being sensitive. Like, he literally said that to the counselor. It was embarrassing for me a little, because like I literally just shared my struggles with the counselor, and then my dad walks in and telling her like, oh, to just basically disregard it. Like, how would you even react if like someone said that to you? And I don't know, I felt bad for her because I didn't know what she would do in that situation.
What did she do?
I don't even remember. I think like at the time, like we just left.
Oh.
Like, I think my counselor was trying her best to like explain to my dad like what was going on, but obviously my dad is very close-minded, and so he didn't really care enough. So we just went home, and that was that.
So after going through all of that, if you were to feel that way again today, would you tell your parents?
I tell my mom.
Okay. And you try
my dad, maybe. But it just depends on his mood, which, it kind of sucks, but that's just the way it is.
And you try to get a therapist?
And try to get a therapist?
Mm-hmm. Or what would you try to get help?
If it was severe, then yeah, I'd get a therapist.
And what about anonymous help? There's a lot of hotlines and stuff. Have you ever tried those?
No.
Why not?
I don't know, like, it just doesn't really cross my mind when I'm thinking about, like, those kind of thoughts.
Well, my experience with mental health, I wouldn't say I have much, I guess. I did go through a pretty tough patch in my childhood when I was like 12 years old. You know how there's it's pretty common, the after puberty, or when you first begin puberty, your hormones change.
Yeah.
And a lot of teenagers get depressed, right? Mm-hmm. You've seen that?
Yeah.
And that happened to me, which sucked. And I remember feeling very, very sad. I was sad all the time. I definitely thought about ending my life more than once. I thought about it a lot of times. They were ongoing thoughts, and I remember how hopeless I felt, and how badly I wanted to die during this time.
Was this just because of your hormones, or
no? There was also different situations I was in that made me really hate my life, and I really hated it, and it was tough. It was just overwhelming feelings of sadness and anger. You felt a lot of anger, and that anger I felt towards other people kind of just got trapped and reflected back at myself. So I felt lonely too. During this time, I remember feeling really lonely. Like I would, it was just, I would cry every night, every single night I would cry. And there was a lot of songs that I used to listen to on repeat because it didn't really even, here's the way I view it, because might be a little controversial, but when people get sad, it becomes so easy to be in that mindset and in that mood of being sad that you get so used to it that you don't want to be happy again, almost. Because that's how I felt. I was so used to being sad and crying. And honestly, it's weird to explain unless you've kind of been through it. But I wanted to be happy, but at the same time, I didn't. I was just fine being sad. And I guess that's part of just losing hope in life, that you don't even want to be happy anymore. You're just fine being sad. And I think that's why a lot of people don't get help, because it's a lot easier to be sad than to be happy. But I remember listening to a lot of songs that made me feel even worse, right? It just made me... The songs weren't even a coping method. It was more of a way to kind of... to make my thoughts feel more real, I guess.
Like what songs?
It was just a lot of these songs were happy songs. They were, upbeat songs.
Oh, so the opposite of what you were feeling?
And it just made me feel so sad, And every time I listened to it, I just remember how lonely I felt. It was the most desperate feeling of loneliness. And I know one of them was... I think it's called It's Time. It was by Imagine Dragons. The other one is called... I think it's called Smile. And I forgot the other ones. But those two, I remember I listened to the most. So I've dealt with a lot of these thoughts. And something I did realize is that a lot of people, a lot of my friends, a lot of adults, parents, teachers, don't take depression as seriously in younger kids, because they really do not understand what they could be depressed about, and they don't understand that even if you have the best life, it's just chemicals in your brain, it's the chemistry in your brain that makes you feel all these things. And that sucks, because if you're a 12-year-old who is feeling depressed, and during this time there was a lot less of a focus on mental health and depression and that kind of aspect, so there wasn't any places for me to look. I had to search up what I was feeling, and then I realized it was called depression, or what I thought felt like depression. Of course, it was never medically diagnosed. And it does suck that there's a lot of kids that are 10, 11, 12 years old, maybe even younger, that are facing depression and are feeling this way, and no one listens to them, no one takes them seriously, and no one takes them for granted. So I hope if there's anyone listening to this that feels this way and feels like they want to end their life, I hope you understand that there are resources for you, and even if it feels like no one's willing to listen, there will always be someone there for you. There's so many resources you can access, so many people that will believe in you, and I hope you don't feel alone, because I wouldn't want anyone to feel as alone as I did.
I also felt like I didn't really describe how I felt during these times, but I basically felt really lonely. I felt like if I was to disappear the next day, then like no one would care. And I remember messaging my friend during one of these times, and it was like one of the worst points of my life. And I remember messaging them, and like I don't know, it was like so reassuring, because at the time I felt so hopeless, and I didn't hold back. But I remember telling them, and they were actually like, I don't know, they really helped me get through it. And the thing is, like, I didn't talk to this person like that often at the time, because they were a grade above me, and so she had so she was in another school, so I never really got to see her. But I remember being really close to her, and I don't know, and at the time I just felt like I didn't really have anyone. And so, I don't know, telling her it really helped me. And I think it prevented a lot of bad things from happening. But yeah, I constantly felt this heavy weight on my heart, and I felt so lonely, even though there were there were so many people that I was friends with. I still felt lonely for some reason. And I remember, there was, I actually still have a playlist up that it just has a bunch of songs that made me really emotional, and I still have it. I don't really listen to it anymore, but I remember listening to it all the time during freshman and 8th grade, freshman, and a little bit of sophomore year. But I remember listening to it every night, and I remember crying myself to sleep every night. It was almost like a routine for me to cry every night. And sometimes, when I'm just laying down, and I'm literally doing nothing, or I'm just looking at my phone, I would just have tears just coming out of my eyes. I don't know. It was really weird, but it was just a really tough time for me, or it is a tough time for me.
I mean, to relate to you guys, I've felt alone. I felt alone, that I didn't have anybody to talk to, or I don't have any friends or someone I could trust. And it feels weird to admit this, but sometimes I feel it with you guys. Sometimes I just feel like you guys don't want me, or you guys don't like me, or that I just question what am I even doing here? I don't know. I would just feel irritated too, and I would feel like I don't like you guys anymore. Sometimes I would feel that too, I don't. Yeah, I don't like you, which is really weird because I do like you guys. But I sometimes I would just go through that mindset sometimes. I would also feel that way about my mom too. I would feel irritated by my mom. Sometimes I would just be mad at her. Even though she does so much for me, I still feel like I don't like her. I would think about it, and I would try to see where this irritation is coming from. And my mom has a boyfriend, right? He's basically my stepdad. He's been my stepdad since I was 5. So it's been a long time. So he's basically been there for me. But I can't say that I see him as a father, or I can't see him as a dad. And sometimes he's just not. I don't think he's fit for my mom. I don't think my mom, or I don't think he deserves my mom. My mom, I think of him as a burden for my mom, because my mom loves him very much, and I just can't see why. But she loves him, and sometimes I feel like she prioritizes him over me. And I could see that when it comes to food. We don't cook food. We would usually buy food, and then so it's kind of like a routine. Every time I go home, I would ask my mom what's for dinner. She would ask me, what do you want? But lately, I feel like the past few months she doesn't call me. I just feel like she doesn't care for me. She doesn't ask me what I want to eat, and it only happens when he asks for food. When he asks for food, that's when she's gonna be the one that's gonna be buying the food. And I would just think about that sometimes, and I don't know. Sometimes I feel like she doesn't love me as in the past. So I would go to church, and she's the one that would drop us off every time. And I remember there was a point in time where she would not be able to drop us off, and she would just say, call an Uber, correct? And for some reason I didn't like that. I didn't want her to call an Uber for us, because I feel like she doesn't do it sounds messed up when I say this, but sometimes I feel like she doesn't do a lot for me. She's always busy with her work, and I know she gets tired, but I just don't feel
Supported?
Supported. Yeah. I never thought of this. I never talked about this for anybody. That's why in the last episode when we were talking about mothers, I couldn't really say a lot of stuff about it because like I love my mom, but like as of right now, I just don't think I just let her do whatever she wants to do, and it just feels like I just live. Or I let her do her stuff, and then I just do my stuff. I just feel like that's the type of relationship we have right now.
You know, there's such a big problem with that parent situation that I understand. I think the way, you know, our society is structured is that we're pressured to believe that our parents are always right and they're always supportive and they're always there for us. But it's completely true that they're not. Sometimes they're not supportive. Sometimes they're not there for you. Sometimes they don't respect you. Sometimes they don't prioritize you. And it's completely fair and completely valid to feel these things and feel like your parents don't love you, you know? It's completely valid to feel distant from your parents. It's completely valid to feel like your parents aren't doing enough. And I think it does suck that a lot of people struggle with these type of things. And when they see people talking about their parents, they're left out of the conversation because they don't feel the same way. And there's a pressure that they should feel that way because everyone else does. And I really don't think that's fair. So I hope you know it's okay to feel that way. There's nothing wrong with feeling that way. And I understand what that's like.
Thank you.
Have you talked to your mom about it?
No, I live with my grandma, and she would see the same things that I would see, and she always tells me that my mom does a lot, because she works 2 jobs, and every time she comes home, like she would just go to bed, like straight to bed. I would say hi to her, she would say hi to me. Sometimes I would ask about her day, like about work. It's just not the same as I would like it to be.
It was different before.
Yeah.
Do you know when like this change happened?
I mean, I just remember as a kid, like I would.
Also, like it's just been happening since 5, like ever since your stepdad came into your life. Or?
Not really. No. I didn't start seeing it happen until I moved here, and that's because that's when it was only me and my mom and my stepdad and my grandmother. Before that, I would live with my cousins. And because of that, I did have somebody to talk to. I had my cousins. I had my uncle. My uncle, the reason why I respect him so much because I feel like he was a father figure for me. He did everything for me. He pushed me hard. He took me places. I remember when I was 5 years old, he took me to SeaWorld. And I don't think my mom would be able to do that because of the money issue that we're unfortunately in. I don't know. It sounds like I'm complaining a lot.
I don't think it's complaining.
No.
It sounds valid. And, you know, you started off by saying that you also feel this way with us sometimes. And
Yeah.
And that's fair too, you know. I think a lot of people feel that way, and myself included. There's also times, you know, I completely understand. There's times where I also go through these moments where I feel like, you know, no one likes me or I don't want to be friends with anyone anymore. It's weird because, you know, one day you're fine and then one small thing kind of sets off this entire mindset, and then you start feel alone, and suddenly every you know interaction with them feels fabricated.
Yeah.
You just doubt it. Are they really feeling that way? Are they acting? Yeah, and I definitely feel that a lot.
Mm-hmm. Like sometimes that's why I go to the library and just be myself. That's why I don't go to the Japanese room with you sometimes, because I would feel those feelings.
Yeah, no, I notice it. Honestly, I notice when you get distant. You know, one day you're fine, and the next you're just okay, bye, hi, and that's it. And I don't blame you because I do it too. I think there's a lot of times where I tend to get very reserved, and even though I wanna talk to you, and, you know, kind of ask you like what's wrong, what's that, I just can't find the voice to do it. Sometimes I feel like I could do a better job of being there for my friends, but I can't find the voice or the courage to ask them what they're feeling.
Going back to like what Mark said about how he felt distant from the podcast, like from you guys, sometimes like from us. I also felt the same way. We already talked about it outside of the podcast, but it's just, and it obviously has gotten better. Like I don't feel that way anymore, but I remember I really did have a big problem with it, and it just felt like, honestly, just felt like the only person I was really close to was like Kayla, and then everyone else was just like I don't know. I didn't feel like I had a connection with you guys. It just felt like everything was for the podcast and not because of like genuine friendship.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
kind of viewed it the same way like that. I feel like
Mhm.
we were just kind of stuck with each other,
Mhm.
if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't feel that way anymore. It's gotten better ever since we like talked about it as a group.
Yeah, I feel that way too. A lot of times, it's hard finding a balance between the podcast and friendship because I sometimes I do feel doubt. Are we friends because of the podcast or because we're actually friends? Sometimes I think that we don't talk about when we're together. The only subject is the podcast or whatever podcast work is happening and nothing else that's more personal. And sometimes I also think that I'd say I talk to everyone pretty much when I see them. I don't ignore everyone. I think Kayla I see the least around school. But
I always smile at you.
yeah, I say hi,
Yeah.
Like sometimes I also think, what if that is the balance of we kind of split apart when we're not doing the podcast and then we spend time together when we do the podcast, because we do this every week, and of course we all have other friends. So I don't really blame you guys for being with other friends or doing things outside of our friend group, because I also do think, it sucks to be forced into a friendship. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Is it really avoiding them, or it's just finding the balance between not attaching my entire social life to this group?
Yeah, I kind of, so last week or the week before that, like I got invited somewhere, right? And it was the day that we were supposed to make the video.
Mhm, yeah.
I think I know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
and like the first thing that came to my mind was like, not to say it's rare, but it's unlikely that like we all, with these other people, that we actually like go out and spend time together. But I felt like with the podcast, like I know that I'll see you guys again. Like I know it's guaranteed, basically.
Mhm, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or as far as we know, it's guaranteed.
Yeah.
So that's why I always feel like torn. So like I don't like to think of it as picking friend groups, but sometimes it feels like that.
Yeah, I feel the same way. And it just, I think it bothers, like, I don't have a problem with, like, us hanging out with other people because, I mean, we all have other friends. But it upsets me when it just feels like I'm not a priority to them anymore, like, as a friend. Like, it's just, the connection isn't there. So, is there really something to balance with when there's nothing to balance with, you know?
Mhm.
But like what Kayla said, I also feel pretty torn because I feel like a lot of my friends don't like inviting me places, or they don't like doing things with me because they assume that I have the podcast or I'm hanging out with you guys, and it just makes them not want to invite me or anything.
Yeah,
you know?
like if I were to say that, oh, I can't go because I have the podcast, then they'd be like, oh, okay then.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, it sucks.
And it's obvious that like they're kind of disapproving. Uncomfortable
with
too.
Yeah. I get what you're saying, Kayla. That incident, or not really incident, but that situation where you where we're all supposed to kind of hang out
Yeah.
as a group, but you had another group. Like, I completely understood what that's like, and the one thing I have been careful to try to do is not make it feel like this friendship is forced. The last thing I would want is for any of you guys to feel like I'm forced to be here. I didn't even want to be here. I wanted to be here, but I have to be here. And I think in some cases that's been unavoidable, but I do understand, and that's why I try to be really careful with stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm kind of stuck in the middle because I have more friends, but my close friends, the ones that I feel that I hang out with regularly and, I feel comfortable going places with, is you guys, right? Isaac, Caleb, Mark, Thomas. You guys are the ones I really do enjoy going out, and I really don't even think of it. I don't know if you guys feel this way, but sometimes you might think of it as sort of a work. We're going out for work or stuff like that. But I'm in the middle because I really, this is just my friend group, and we happen to have a podcast, which I really enjoy doing, which is just a bonus. So I do find myself being left pretty alone when everyone's kind of doing their own thing with their own friend groups. And that's where I tend to feel a lot lonelier.
I just feel like because you are the one who created this podcast and you got to choose who got to be in it and stuff, you obviously chose your friends and the people
or
you
acquaintances.
Yeah.
Or acquaintances.
or just people you thought would be best for it. And obviously if it was up to me, I'd choose different people.
Well, this podcast was supposed to be about mental health, and it is about mental health, but I think you guys expected it to be more of us giving advice. And right now it's kind of been mostly us sharing our stories and the way our environment, our friendships have affected our mental health. So I really hope that doesn't bother you too much.
Yeah, because I feel like because before comments would be like, oh, they're complaining, or they're just rambling.
Yeah.
So I don't want it to seem like that.
We're just trying to share our experiences, and hopefully you could take something out of it. But we're going to change the tone a little and try to be a little more direct in kind of giving advice with different subjects that you guys chose on our Instagram. I think one of the biggest controversies over depression specifically is the self-diagnosis. Do you find that silly when people say they have depression even though they've never been to a doctor?
I don't think that's silly.
Yeah,
like
I
for
don't think so
Thomas'
either.
example, like I take him seriously. I know that what he felt was real. So like, who am I to say that you weren't depressed?
Yeah.
If I wasn't living those moments, why should I have the say?
Why put a label on it too?
Mm-hmm.
That too.
Even if it's not depression, even if you don't have the chance to call it clinically diagnosed depression, you feel these intense emotions, these depressing emotions, and there's no point in attaching a label to it. If you feel these things and they're real, then they're completely valid, in my opinion. The only thing that's important to take note is that you should take all these feelings that other people tell you about seriously and not brush them aside, which kind of leads me to another thing that I really wanted to talk about. Is I think a side that is less talked about is the people that get put into the situations where they have to help friends or family kind of deal through their problems. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get you.
When a friend unloads on you.
Yeah.
I think that's a lot less talked about, and I don't see many people talking about it. And I think it's equally as important and equally as dangerous as depression.
Yeah, about that, like, what I said earlier about me telling that certain friend about the way I was feeling, I realized, like, after that, it was kind of selfish of me to kind of unload all of that onto her, because it's not really her responsibility to check up on me or make sure I'm okay and stuff. So it was definitely, like, I wasn't thinking at the time, and I was just going through it, and I don't know, I just felt really bad afterwards, and I should have just took into consideration, like, how she would feel and how I would have felt, and if that was to happen to me.
I think it's especially dangerous for kids who are younger, maybe middle schoolers or even elementary schoolers, when they have a friend that unloads all these issues on you and the person doesn't know how to react. Now imagine if, let's say, a 12-year-old felt all these feelings and they unloaded it all on their friend who's the same age as them. and the friend doesn't know how to respond. He doesn't know how to act. He doesn't know what to say. He's just stunned. And then let's say the person kills himself. It could leave such a huge scar and emotional impact on the person. And that's why it's so dangerous. It could cause them to feel survivor's guilt. It could cause them to go into their own depression, which is, I think it's important to talk about these issues and how to handle them, because they feel a lot of guilt if something bad were to happen to their friend.
I feel like when, like, let's say you do tell somebody else about like your problems, but they're like in the same boat as you, or maybe even worse, I feel like that's when it can be worse. But I think that if you're telling it another person and they're in a good place, then I don't see it as a bad thing, really. I think it's just trying to like seek their advice or something.
I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but I think it could get very overwhelming very quickly. Because let's say they don't want to get professional help and they're just going to you for help, going to you with all their issues, big issues. They're threatening to kill themselves or threatening to hurt themselves. Maybe they're even threatening to hurt others. You can't tell an adult because that would violate their trust. And that might make it even worse. So you get scared. Even if you're in a good place, it could be really overwhelming because you're stuck absorbing all these feelings, and slowly that could make you go from a good place to a really bad place after being exposed to those types of feelings for so long.
Like going back to like telling other people, I guess I don't know, I'm more hesitant to say how I'm feeling. I don't know why. I don't know. Anyways, but I do find that when I bottle up my emotions, I get irritated more easily. So like a week or two ago, I was walking home, right?
Right.
And I was like really hungry. So I called my mom and I was like, what is there to eat? And then, okay, not in that mean tone. Like, I was like,
Okay.
oh, like what's there to eat? And then she's like, oh, there's nothing. That just like honestly wasn't that big of a deal. Like, I'm sure there was something, but I just got really frustrated. So I was so irritated. So I just hung up the phone. I didn't even say bye.
Oh.
I like stormed into the house and like I'm trying to take a shower because it was like so hot.
Yeah.
But like I couldn't find the speaker, and I always take a shower with the speaker.
Okay.
Yeah, me too.
So I couldn't find it. So like I just started crying on the bed. So I was just, I don't know. I just felt like so overwhelmed.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you bottled up your feelings.
I think so. Like, I don't know. There was really no reason for me to start crying because I couldn't find the speaker.
Right. Yeah.
But I don't know. It was just a bad day, I guess. I don't know.
Oh.
But yeah.
Yeah, you're always very secretive with your feelings. I never know what you're feeling. I do notice when you're irritated sometimes. It's like different. I know this happens with everyone, of course. You notice their irritated side. So like I label it, this is irritated Kayla, this is happy Kayla, and this is like really, like energized Kayla. I noticed it.
I've seen those three. I
Yeah.
can differentiate with
You
you.
can you?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah. I think it was
That's why I
last.
would talk to you only on your excited.
Yeah. Like
Wow,
last
okay.
podcast, Kayla was like in a good.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Last podcast was like your
podcast.
peak, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Was it?
The happy Kayla jumped
Yeah,
out.
like the happy Kayla
Oh.
jumped out quick. And there's
She
other
didn't mean to.
there's other times where I do see like a more, like, if I say the wrong thing, she's about to like snap on me. So I gotta.
No, just
I
say
get
it.
scared.
Be
Honestly,
careful with
but I
your
just-
words.
Yeah.
I just feel like Kayla has overall always been such a positive person. Like, even when she's having like a bad day, she doesn't show it to other people.
Yeah.
Like, I've never seen a day where she has like lashed out on someone, and I honestly admire that
Yeah.
because I know I can't do that.
Well, yeah, funny enough, like today I was thinking, I've never seen Kayla, or I rarely hear Kayla complain, which is something I'm aiming to do, to complain less. So I just thought about that. I was like, I rarely see Kayla complain. I was like, I wish I was like her.
Wow.
I wish
thank
I was
you.
like you.
And I've never heard any drama that involved her. So
Actually, last year.
Oh.
oh, okay.
All right.
Before that,
Well-
I never heard anything.
All right. But moving on from just appreciating Kayla, you know, something that I also think is interesting is it selfish to want someone to notice your bad behavior? Well, maybe not selfish, but how do you feel about that? Have you ever done that?
I mean, sometimes I do it unintentionally. Like,
Oh.
I don't mean to attract attention, I guess. I don't know.
Have you ever done it intentionally?
Maybe. I probably have. It seems like something I would do. I don't know.
Okay.
But I don't think it's selfish. I think, or
It's a cry for help, I believe.
yeah, a cry for help.
Yeah, I did it with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when I deactivated my account,
Yeah.
I don't know what my mind was going through during that time, but I was definitely wanted your attention.
Yeah, I notice it a lot. I think
Yeah.
every time you get quiet and you don't speak,
Yeah,
I feel like you're trying to bait me to ask if
I mean-
you're okay.
and like in the moment, I act like, or I think like I don't want it, like I don't want to talk to anybody. But then when you do ask me, I'm like, whoa, this feels nice. Like yesterday, or not yesterday, I mean last episode, when I was kind of like bitter, when I was feeling bitter about the mother's thing, like I didn't want to talk to anybody that day,
Mm-hmm.
but it just felt nice and reassuring that you were able to catch on and like just tell when I have a problem. It just feels like I'm not like alone.
Yeah. I mean,
So I appreciate that. Appreciate that about you.
You're welcome. Like I said, I always notice it's just hard speaking up because I have this issue where if I know you're making it obvious that you're in a bad mood and it sort of kind of makes me feel like you want me to ask, then it makes me want to ask even less.
Oh, really?
Same.
Yeah, it's like, okay, if you keep acting like, you know, it's such a bad habit, and I wish I was more brave and had more courage to ask what's wrong, but it's a bad habit.
I feel like I only ask, like, regardless the circumstances, when it's like a really close friend.
Mm-hmm.
So I can just ask them.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not like I do it intentionally for someone to notice and ask me what's wrong, but they're like, it's just I'm so bad at hiding my emotions that it's like people just know. There's been like very, very few times where like I tried to show that I was upset, so like a specific someone can like see like ask what's wrong, but that happened like a long time ago. Like I don't do that anymore. But when I'm upset, I think people just know I'm upset, just because of like my body language and like my facial expression, and yeah.
So that's it for this episode because we've been recording for an hour. I don't know how long we'll keep in, but it should be a long episode. There's so much more we need to talk about. So much more. We barely even covered the surface, honestly. Thank you guys for being so supportive. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.